You're listening to episode 116 of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Amanda Testa.
We are so disconnected nowadays, and it's so easy to resort to being on your phone or just doing a little bit more work or, whatever it is. There's all these things calling for our attention. And what we truly crave is connection with another.
Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Hant, and welcome to Lifestyle Locker Radio, where we help you create an awesome life and lifestyle. From nutrition to fitness, mindfulness to peak performance, and relationships to money mindset, we bring you on an amazing journey to help you unleash your human potential. So here is a little bit about our guest today, Amanda Testa. She is a sex, love, and relationship expert and founder of Find Your Feminine Fire. Her methods bridge ancient tantric tools combined with the latest in neuroscience to help high-performing women ditch the guilt and unworthiness and embody confidence, radiance, and vitality in all areas of their lives. So without further ado, here's our guest today, Amanda. Okay, everybody, in the locker room today, we've got Amanda. She's going to be our first on this topic, so I'm very excited to hear what she has to say, so welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So this is going to be a really neat and hopefully a little juicy for people, so make sure you are paying attention and you are, well, if you're driving, just be calm and listen, because this is going to be about sex, yes, I said sex, love, and relationships. So I want to dive into all of these areas, and Amanda, as you heard, is an expert in these fields. So I want to find out a little bit more about this because I find this intriguing and I think it's such a neat topic. So tell me, how did you become an expert in these areas?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for myself, my journey into this work kind of began because of my own personal experience. And and it's something I see all the time with the women that I work with is that, we are burning the candle at both ends. We are taking care of everyone else's needs and our own fall to the very bottom of the list. And with all the demands that we have on us through our families or our jobs or whatever it is, at the end of the day, many times you just want to crawl into bed and pretend you're asleep. And even if, you don't want to get nudged by your partner, you want to pretend you're asleep, which is sad but true. I know a lot of women experience this, and men too, and there's nothing worse than being next to someone, a warm body lying next to you in the bed, and feeling terribly alone and disconnected. And so, I can really relate to that because I was in a similar situation. My daughter was newly born, and my husband, thankfully, and we've had a really great connection. But even so, I just remember I was doing all the things I thought were right for myself. I was working out, I was eating well, I was involved in the community. I actually taught these workouts for moms at the time. And, I just realized that something was still so missing. I would wake up in the morning just resentful. I just remember going into the bathroom one morning, kicking around toys as I went, just I'm the only one that does anything around here. Whatever I was mumbling to myself, and just looking in the mirror and having zero connection with the woman looking back at me. And in that moment, I just made a commitment to myself that I would, do whatever it took to find her again. So I would follow whatever breadcrumbs came across my path. And one of those breadcrumbs happened to be my teacher, Layla Martin, in the Tantric Institute of Integrated Sexuality. I started working with her, and just through, initially when I did this, I was like, all right, I'm just going to try anything. And maybe this will just spice things up in the bedroom. That was my initial thought.
Yeah.
And that's part of what happened. But really what happened was I learned how to connect deeply with myself. And I learned how to truly love and accept my body, accept my sexuality. I think so many people in our culture, even men, are really, there's a lot of shame around sexuality coming along. It's not talked about. There's so much guilt and all these kind of things we hold in our sexuality. So in doing all this work, I really believe it's like a missing key in personal growth and development, because you can just heal so much in working with this. And also, just learning how to feel good in your body and learning, how to use your turn on to fuel your energy body and all kinds of good stuff. And really, it's just from that experience, I realized the change I saw in myself, it was night and day. And I was like, I want every woman to feel this way. So I'm going to make it my mission to learn how to teach this to others. So I did. I studied there for 4 years and got lots of certifications, spent over 800 hours. So that is how I came to this work.
That's wild. You said 800 hours?
Yes.
Holy moly. That's a lot of studying for anybody, any topic. So this is neat. I mean, you mentioned something that was interesting to me. Well, a bunch of it is interesting to me. I just finished reading a book called Game Changers with Dave Asprey, and he talks about something that you even mentioned, which I think is really neat, is using sexual energy as energy to do other things that are important in life or fun in life or whatever, using it as actually a focusing tool versus not letting it just letting it be there. So
exactly. And that's actually a Taoist philosophy. And there's quite a few things that come from that. But I think in his book specifically, he speaks to that. And I work with that a lot because it's, even Napoleon Hill talked about it back in Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
Is like transmuting that energy. And it's just a practice that you can learn because, I know it kind of sounds out there and woo-woo, but there is a lot of proof about how we are energy and, how that works. And like anything, when there's a strong focus and intention, you can kind of manipulate that to your benefit.
Okay.
Right.
Fair enough. Yes. I mean, since I'm a chiropractor, I have to maybe just not use that word manipulate. I would say adjust it,
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
It just sounds nicer.
That is true.
Too funny. And you also mentioned is having this, this energy is helping helping people create like a much better life and lifestyle. So what does that even mean? How am I using connection, like this human interaction, this connection to help create a better lifestyle?
We are so disconnected nowadays, and it's so easy to resort to being on your phone or just doing a little bit more work or, whatever it is. There's all these things calling for our attention. And what we truly crave is connection with another. And if you are in a relationship or you have a partner and you're able to nourish that and nurture it, that can be a huge connection point of energy and of, inspiration and joy and pleasure. And so many times in our busy life nowadays, though, and it's statistically shown, people are just on their phones all the time, and it's an addiction. And so instead of touching their partner's skin, they're touching the screen of Instagram, right?
Yeah. No, it's so true.
And the more you can learn to use those connection points to nourish yourself, and it's just fun too. When you have a partner that you enjoy, you can forget that in the busyness of life. And so it's like making it a practice to connect regularly. And it can be just as simple as, even in the morning before you get out of bed, touch each other, kiss each other, something to connect physically, or, just throughout the day, connect. And at night, it's so easy to, again, work and do all these things, but it's like making it an intention to connect without devices. And so there's so many ways you can go about doing that, but it's just having that intention to make that connection a part of your lifestyle. Because when you have that, if you're lucky enough to be in a relationship where you're with someone that you enjoy and you love and you trust and you feel safe around, then it's just this beautiful opportunity for healing and growth and pleasure and exploration. There's all kinds of good stuff that can happen.
Okay. So here's a question just to kind of go deeper into what we're talking about. You mentioned, if you're in a relationship with someone you want to be in or you love, I think it's a really neat way to put it. For people that are in relationships, or actually here's a question then, do you see a big difference in people you work with that are possibly earlier in relationships than that are in longer term relationships? Someone that may be like a year or two in a relationship versus people that are, 10, 20 years into a relationship?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think that oftentimes when people reach out for help, it's when things aren't awesome. Mm-hmm. There are the few people that are proactive. I do actually have a lot of people that are proactive. They're really into their health and development and want to create a good relationship from the start. But a lot of times it's because maybe they haven't put the relationship on the front of the burner and now it's suffering, or they want to try to rekindle that connection. And what I'll say to that is, whether you're in a new relationship or a long-term relationship, the key is, you really need to create an environment where you each feel safe. And I know that's kind of a base level thing, but, in this day and age, there's so much trauma. There's all kinds of things going on. And for people to really open up to one another and be vulnerable, you have to have that safety with one another. And so if you're constantly, and I mean, this kind of goes to the neurology part of it, or the neuroscience part. It's like, if your primal brain, like if you're constantly being signaled that you're not safe, then your amygdala is activated. You're constantly on alert. You're not going to open up to your partner. And when you've been constantly, in these stress cycles, like triggering stress cycles in one another, you're not going to have that. So a lot of it is reestablishing, okay, this person is safe, and letting my body know this person is safe. And there's, connection practices you can do to allow that. And a lot of it is like, touching each other's bodies and like being in that space and like letting yourself feel safe. Because after, maybe it's in a longer term relationship, even short term, where they're just not connecting, it's like just allowing that can be hard, right? Because they're so guarded and they're so on alert, and they're like triggered parts are like lashing out.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned safety, and then you also mentioned stress. Does one have a direct effect on the other?
They're very connected. I mean, and speaking of relationships and stress, I mean, stress kills sex hormones. So it's no wonder that when we are constantly overwhelmed and not taking care of ourselves, that the sex falls to the wayside. Or, and there's all kinds of things that can happen around that. But yeah, that's a big piece of it.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we get just into the science portion. You mentioned like the neurochemicals and the sex hormones are decreased, but that's also is directly having an effect on just like the simple connection that people are having with maybe not even in their direct relationship with their loved one. If like, does that kind of go out into their community?
For sure it does. I mean, because honestly, you have to start with yourself. And that's what I work with so many women on. And even in relationships, when I work with couples, it's like you got to first work on yourself. Because granted, if your partner's not coming along for the ride, that's fine. Eventually, 90% of the time, if you're doing a lot of work on yourself, they will come along. And if not, then it's time to reevaluate. Maybe they will eventually, or maybe you're not aligned and the relationship has run its course, right? So, but it's taking care of your own needs and making sure that you're full and a whole person. So you're coming in as a full person, and this person's coming in as a full person. So when you merge, you've got like this beautiful loop.
Okay.
Right? Versus looking at your partner to like complete pieces of you. That's not as healthy, right?
Yeah, of course. So would you recommend then, so I hate to cut you off.
Yeah.
You're just getting me thinking. When you're working with people, do you find better results working with individuals or with couples?
So it's both.
Okay.
'Cause if I'm working with a couple, I work with them each individually.
Okay.
Because there's so much, a lot of it is just learning simple practices for yourself to nourish yourself, to connect to your own energy, to, because depending on who it is, even for men, the conditioning that there's only certain ways to be a man, or certain ways that you can allow yourself to express yourself. And so maybe it's anger, right? That's a totally socially acceptable emotion for a man to have. And so it's kind of letting them open up to feeling other emotions maybe, or even maybe they're repressing their primal desires and giving them practices where they can like access those and like into that and feel that energy. And alternatively for a woman, it could be, the same thing, teaching you how do you even like what feels good in your own body, and like what do you enjoy, and how do you, where in your body do you like to be touched, and how, and it's like really relearning your anatomy and how it works and what feels good. I mean, that's a big part.
And I think as it all comes down to that disconnection, like us just kind of, and I don't want to say forget, but I like this that we're talking about like connecting with each other. But if we can't even connect with our own selves, how are we even able to, if we can't understand who we are, connect to that other person that might be important in life?
Exactly. And I really like to move us from our heads into our bodies.
Okay.
Because that is where so much of the disconnect happens, because we're always up here. We're always thinking about all we have to do. And it's like getting into your body and like being in your body and being in your body with another person and allowing that to be like these, our bodies also hold on to so much, as being a chiropractor,
of course,
much that you can release somatically, and allowing a relationship to be a place for that, to explore. And, sex doesn't always have to look a certain way. That's another thing we're conditioned. It looks a certain way through porn or whatever conditioning we've had coming along. A lot of our thoughts around what sex looks like may or may not be true. And honestly, it's like defining what is good for you, what feels good for you, and and allowing it to be a container for whatever. So if someone gets emotional, that's fine. You just let the stress cycle complete and move on. Or because sometimes when you're, doing, working with the body, even just in a sexual encounter, things can come up, things can be released. And so it's allowing that to happen and being like, cool, now then reconnect and go back to intimacy, right?
Okay. Energy is everything, huh?
Yes.
So in your bio, we also mentioned bridging ancient tantric tools, right, with modern neuroscience. So I want to rewind a little bit. Can you explain what Tantra is or tantric tools are? So we have like a baseline on understanding that. I know I'm going backwards, but I think it's important.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's a huge philosophy, so it's hard to describe just in a simple definition,
Okay.
But what I do like to say is, it's really, I feel like a lot of undoing your conditioning and really connecting to your own consciousness and realizing that you are pure consciousness and there's like divine in everything. And so it's, a lot of unlearning and deconditioning and connecting to your own consciousness. And, that is a very simplistic definition of Tantra.
Yeah.
And it's like a weaving together of all these things like yin and yang and the masculine and the feminine. And there's so many aspects of it. But how I like to utilize it in the way I work with clients is, it is this beautiful, beautiful breadth of practices. And you can really use these to rewire yourself and your mind and your body so that you can enjoy more pleasure, that you can be more open to connecting to the divine that is in life. And, when you connect in with your partner and you can have these beautiful sexual experiences that can be like connecting to the divine. And when you have these intentions around your lovemaking and maybe make it more of kind of a ritual and create really a beautiful container to celebrate your relationship, to like consecrate this relationship. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can do with it that just makes it more a deeper connection where you're connecting like on so many different levels with your partner. And you do a lot, it's just simply like slowing things down, even using your breath, like really being in your body, connecting all your energy points. And that's so key when it comes to sexuality because we're, again, so outside of our bodies. And we feel that, a lot of times too, there's the term spiritual bypassing, right? Where it's just all enlightenment is all up here. But I love with Tantra too, it's like in the body. You have to be in the body. And connecting to that divine piece inside of you that, is pure consciousness.
Yeah. And I've read and heard people talk about like that, maybe not Tantra, but the word Tantra, but with even like sex can be an altered state. It doesn't need to be like you mentioned, people getting out of their head. It's like getting so connected that you're not in yourself anymore, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting to hear that. And we also mentioned just before, lifestyle and using that sexual energy, and we mentioned it briefly. Are there specific ways that people can channel that the energy that they have, if they have a lot of it, to use it productively in their life, not destructively?
Yes, there is actually. And I can actually send a gift to your listeners of a practice of alchemizing sexual energy where cool. I can walk you through a meditation. But there are ways, and another simple way is kind of learning to attach to the turn on and like allowing it to move through your body. And so say you do have an excess amount of it through the day and you're like, how do I use this in a way that's productive? So it's like kind of learning to take that energy and like moving it through your body instead of keeping it centralized in your genitals. Then you like really like focus on that energy and in sometimes it helps to visualize it like a ball of light or energy or something that you can visualize. And then just kind of imagine like pulling it. You can kind of squeeze your pelvic floor muscles if you're a man or a woman and kind of get that and like pull it up through your body. So you could pull it up into your heart and let it alchemize in your heart for a little bit, like just kind of visualize it swirling through your heart. And then you visualize it kind of coming up to the top of your head. And this is where it's becoming more like a presence and a spiritual energy, and you can like leave it here if you want to be more in your head, if you want to be more present, or you can like let it go back down through your body and have it kind of of a different flavor of sexual energy.
Okay. Interesting.
And again, it's one of those things that's a practice. So at first it might feel kind of weird, but if you do it a few times, then you're like, oh, okay, now I can connect to this.
Okay.
So, even like if you just clap your hands together and like rub them, I'm sure you know this technique, right? You just kind of feel that energy.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like you can connect to that in your body in other ways.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So here's another question that I think is important because I know a lot of our listeners are in relationships and are married. Some are not, and that's okay. And I think you'll probably get something out of this as well, this question. What are ways that people can actually enjoy more intimacy with their partner?
Yep. So I would say one of the first things, like I mentioned, is creating intentional time to spend together.
Okay.
Because it's, if you think about when you were first together, when you would go on a date, there would be excitement. You would know when it would happen. Mm-hmm. Maybe you got yourself a little more put together, and there was an excitement around it. And when you're always next to someone and you're always together, you're like, yeah, you're always there. So it's kind of making that intentional time to connect again so that you can have some excitement around it. And then also making it be, and you may know, I don't know if you know Susan Bratton, she's also a lovely leader in this space, but I love how she calls them erotic play dates. So when you make erotic play dates where you create space to try new things and be curious and create, a lot of it. I have another practice I can share that it's a communication tool, basically. But, I think we can sometimes use support in that because we, again, are so in our ways. Sometimes it takes consistent practice to rewire the way we react and respond more than react, right?
Yeah, true.
And so it's like kind of practicing some of these communication tools where you allow each other to just talk without interrupting and allow each other to be a little more vulnerable and creating that, the term holding space I know is overused, but a lot of times people don't really understand what that is. And it's literally just allowing the person that you're with to be exactly as they are in that moment and just being with that and not judging it and just letting it be what it is. Because so often we're like, oh, he seems pissy, so I better put on I better like defend myself, or like, oh great, she's going to be in this mood. That means we're not going to connect. Now might as well just not even put any effort in. Right. So we can trigger those patterns versus like, now we know we can like talk to each other. And if things are coming on, we can talk to them. If we want to try new things, we can bring it up and know that it will be received. Right. So I think like creating those like regular times to be together and letting it be what it is. Like maybe you have sex, maybe you hang out, whatever it is, but you have like these regular connection points. And I mentioned earlier kind of those, there's a great author. There's this book called Wired for Love. And the author there, he talks about how you create these little connection points like in the morning and the evening. I think he calls them launches and landings. There's so many different ways that you can go about that, but it's just like creating these little connection points throughout the day, like especially in the morning and when you get back from work. Because it's so easy to not like connect. But when your partner comes in from work or when you get back together after being gone all day, then you take like 30 seconds to hug each other or to like connect physically. Because even after just 30 seconds, that's when your body starts releasing the oxytocin. And, it's a great tool. It's so simple. And when you do more of that, the more your bodies are going to feel safe and the more you're going to want to open up and have more intimacy and have more sex and be more, open. Yes. During the experience.
So it sounds like that, the overview of what we're talking about in general is the patterns we have and the patterns we create for ourselves are going to have a direct impact on our relationships, whether it be sedation, like we said, through technology or not giving that hug, like, I'm back from work, whatever, within those first 30 seconds, neuroscientifically, if that's even a word, it can have a direct impact. Not getting that hug and kiss, when you walk in the door, or giving it. I shouldn't say getting it, but being the person that's actually. Yeah, well, of course, right. But patterns are going to either be very constructive or destructive. It sounds like.
Exactly. So when you Yeah, when you wire in that, like, oh, when I see my partner, it feels good. Like you're rewiring that,
Mm.
like, oh, I want to see them because it feels good. My body likes to be around this person. Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really neat to think about it this way because I think the society as a whole thinks about, I think they maybe relate to sex or relate to intimacy based on what they've seen on TV or seen on, a media of some sort, because it's been, it's either portrayed like as some crazy, wild thing, or it's portrayed as, bad. It's like, we can't see this until we're teenagers on TV. You can't see like a nude person. It's being nude is bad. All of these things that kind of get brainwashed into us, at a young age, I think kind of start to show up a lot.
For sure. They
Yeah.
do. And you might not even realize it, And even for, many people coming along, like maybe they had experiences where they were shamed around their sexuality or,
Of course.
so that can come up. Or, anything that you do that doesn't make you feel. So let me rephrase that a little bit. So, for example, I know oftentimes, a story that I'll hear was like maybe someone got caught masturbating or something as a young kid, and then they got shamed for it. And so then now they have so much shame, they don't realize it. Like it's really subconscious, but maybe they feel a little guilty after they have sex or something like that. So it's not something they're conscious of, but they don't really feel good. And so it's like, you got to remove all that shame. You got to just kind of rewrite all that and let that all go. Like to release all those stories that don't serve you, and then like bring in the ones that do, and create new ways to feel good. Because another thing, we get conditioned into the same patterns of what feels good. So I know for a lot of men, porn is the thing, and that's fine. But I think, making sure that you're conscious about it, like if it's something that you feel shameful about, that's one thing. But if it's something that you enjoy, that's another. But, a lot of times anything you do habitually to get pleasure, when you go into a real physical connection with another human, it's not always be able to recreate in that same way. So
Yeah,
even like,
I can
if you
imagine.
use the vibrator too much, like you gotta just kind of make sure that you are allowing those pathways to wire more than one way so you can feel more pleasure and overall.
Okay, not using it as a technique to just
Yeah.
get off,
Yeah.
and not have an experience with a human being again.
Well, I mean, and it's okay if you do that every once in a while, and it's,
Yeah.
that's fine as long as it's conscious, and that's one thing. But if it's kind of, if it's just a habit where there's no connection, even to yourself, then that's another.
Okay.
And so I like, because I think like to create the lifestyle, it's just creating a practice where you are able to connect to your own sexual energy and learn how to work with that to serve you, and then allowing that to come into intimacy with your partner. Because
Okay.
that is it's a simple thing, like a simple practice. It doesn't take long. There's many things you can do. Just like I'll share that meditation, but just something to tap in, letting that energy go. Oops. And
Yeah. So then another question here, because we were talking about lifestyle,
Yeah.
and thinking the person that maybe goes through your works with you, or that goes through the course or whatever it may be, that's coming out in a much better place. Do you see it transfer over to not only their sexual health? Do you see it change other areas in their life too?
Oh my gosh, so much so. I actually was just talking with a client yesterday, and she was telling me, first of all, like her relationship with her partner is like 80% better, and their sex life is 100% better, which I think is pretty huge.
Yeah.
But also she is shifting her career. So now she has such a better vision on where she's going. And, I think that's a big part of it, is because when you start being able to feel this confidence in your own body and feeling like you're able to express what you want and need, that it definitely takes off in other areas of your life. Because what I think it truly does is it fuels the sense of worthiness, like a deep sense of worthiness and connection that makes you're like, yes, I have big things to do in the world, if whatever it may be, even if, whatever your job is, if it's being a mother, or if it's going to work, or if it's healing people, whatever it is, it's like you have this newfound sense of like power and worth.
Yeah.
And that just is huge with it. Or, financially, I see it with women all the time. I have another client who she went from charging $2,000 a package to charging $16,000 a package. after this work.
That's a big difference.
I mean, huge, right? She's like owning herself and her worth and her power. So
Yeah.
it's really powerful work.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like a confidence booster as well. I mean, it's really neat to see that you're having an impact on one section of their life, which translates across the board.
Well,
Completely.
if you think about your own relationship, if anyone out there is in a relationship, imagine how you feel the day after. Maybe you've had an awesome connection. Maybe you had some great sex with your partner. You wake up, you're feeling good. You go out into the world. How do you feel? Versus maybe you have been in an argument and you didn't touch or even talk to each other. And like you left the house and you're still feeling like shut down and irritated.
Yeah. Two different people right there walking
Right?
out the door. Yeah.
And imagine the ripple effect that has on everything you touch that day.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I mean, it's like having a good, yeah, pretty awesome. You got me thinking already. I'm like, oh, that's pretty neat. Wow. So here's a question for you. I like to ask everybody, or most people when I remember is, if you had to, take everything you've learned and everything that you know to this date, and we had to put like into three things that are going to help improve someone's lifestyle and make it awesome, what three things would they be?
All right.
It's hard.
So it is. I would say for me, because what I believe is number one is you have to cultivate a connection with yourself on a regular basis. And so I love to call it sensual self-care practice. For men and women, you can learn these. And it's just a way to just keep that energy cultivated. Number two would be to really, make sure that you have intention around your relationships and what you do, because the intention is a huge piece. Like even if in the morning you just wake up and your intention is, I'm going to be as loving as I can be to my partner today. I'm going to, be as, and maybe what your partner likes. And if you don't, then that's something to learn. Like that's an easy question to ask. Like, what do I do that makes you feel loved? So just commit to yourself that day. I'm going to do more of that. So intention is my second thing. And then thirdly, I would say, is to, really enjoy and like find pleasure. Like I like to say, have your daily dose of vitamin P, like find what you love to do and do more of that. So what lights you up, right? Do something that lights you up every day.
I like that.
And for me, a big piece of that is connected to sexuality, but it may not be for you, but for whatever it is for you, find that and do that every day. So those would be my three things.
That's great. I like that a lot. I like those a lot. Can you also, on your website, you have an awesome picture of you holding like 20 books, right? So I know you study a lot. We said about 800 hours alone, and I know it hasn't stopped. I'm sure it hasn't stopped. Would you, if you had to give one book or recommend one book that you've read that's had a big impact on either helping you jump into what you're doing now, or that you've read over the past year, do you think it's worth for people to read?
Well, I would say it would be different for a man or a woman.
Okay.
But actually, one of my favorite books that I love in this space is The Women's Anatomy of Arousal by Sherry Winston. And that is just a great book for women to learn about their bodies and to really kind of re-educate themselves, right? Because a lot of it is re-education. And also there's some great tips in there for the men as well to give, to enjoy more pleasure. That's a great one. I think for men, there's quite a few. Oh man. So I think like there's David Deida. He's got a lot of great work, like The Way of the Superior Man. Montauk Chia's got some really great books around working with your sexual energy. So what I could do is I can create a list that I can share. But I would say those are the two that I would really, those would be starting points. I think for women, The Women's Anatomy of Arousal, The Way of the Superior Man is a good one. I think for couples, one of the great books for relationships, I love Harville Hendrix, and his book is Getting the Love You Want. That's a great book for couples. Also, the one I mentioned earlier by Stan Tatkin, the Getting the Love You Want. No, sorry, that's not. Wired for Love. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Two different ones. But yeah, so those would be some good starting points.
That's great. Well, I mean, you're a wealth of knowledge in this world, and I really hope and pray that everybody does connect with you, via social media, maybe gets to work with you at some point. But I have a feeling that you're not going to stop in your learning and your education in this world, in your space. You're definitely a thought leader in where you are.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you, and I want to thank you so much for being on here. And also, you mentioned the meditation, which I want to thank you so much. That is a great, great gift. I love meditation. It's one of my favorite things to do daily. So I hope that people listening and yourself, I know, probably it's a daily practice. And also you're giving, what is it? It says, to my favorite connection practices, right? That's what you're going to give away, which I'll put the link in the show notes, but it's amandatesta.com and /intimacy. And you're going to get some really cool stuff there as well. So
yes, those would be things you can do with your partner and in like 15 minutes. Feel more.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, I appreciate you. This was an awesome conversation. It went in a lot of great directions, and I think people are going to really love you.
Oh, thank you.
Hey everyone, I hope you did enjoy that episode with Amanda. Make sure you head over to the show notes, and you'll get all the details on how to connect with her on social, her website, her giveaway, her intimacy giveaway. So make sure you do go to the show notes, check that out. You can head over to lifestylelocker.com/Amanda Testa and get all of those details as well. So make sure if you haven't liked us on social, go to facebook.com/lifestylelocker and go ahead and hit that like button for us. And you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Josh Hant, and I will gratefully and more than likely follow you back so we can create a cool conversation, share some fun pics, and so on and so forth. And lastly, head over to iTunes for us. If you have not done this yet, many of you have, so thank you very much. Go ahead and give us a nice 5-star positive review. I appreciate it. The listeners and future listeners will greatly appreciate it as well. It gets our audio in front of more people. So have a great day, evening, and night, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.